The following game is played at the World Rapid Championships, which are taking place in the city of Samarkand in Uzbekistan. And we're going to have a look at Ivan Cheparinov with the white pieces playing against Richard Rapport. Two very interesting, ambitious players, so definitely you will enjoy this game. It's going to be very short, very instructive, with a beautiful tactic at the end. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more coverage from the World Rapid and Blitz. So let's have a look at the game. e4, c6. It's the Caro-Kann, knight f3, d5. And now normally people go here for the move knight c3 to protect the pawn on e4. It's the two knights variation, but the modern approach to the Caro-Kann is here, this move d3, which looks kind of strange at first because black has the possibility now to exchange pawns, followed by the exchange of queens, when white is forced to give up the right to castle. But it's a queenless middle game, so things are not too problematic. In fact, it's a very modern way of trying to play for an edge as white against the Caro-Kann. Well, not everybody would like to go for the exchange of queens. Rapport played here the move queen c7, which is also an interesting move, flexible move, and it does gain control over the e5 square. So at some point you would like to place your pawn on e5. But white first plays here the move knight c3. So you're attacking the pawn on d5 now also with your knight. And the queen on d8 is no longer there, no longer protecting the pawn on d5. So black has to do something about that pawn. Takes on e4 and white recaptures with the e-pawn. When we do have a symmetrical position with only one open file, looks like black should be okay here. If he does play a move like e5, then very soon he can just bring out both his bishops with a more or less even game. But Rapport has a different idea. What he does here is interesting. He played the move knight e7. So it's a flexible move. You're not revealing your intentions in the center yet. And, well, white would normally like to get its bishop out to c4. But if you do play bishop c4, then you got to reckon with b5 and the bishop comes under an attack. If you go back, then maybe knight c5 can be played. It's a bit annoying. So white starts here with a move a4, grabbing space on the queen side. And after knight gf6, the bishop comes out to c4. The bishop is much more stable now. And after knight b6, attacking the bishop on c4, the bishop goes back to b3. Bishop is doing pretty well here. It's keeping an eye on this pawn on f7. Bishop g4, pinning the knight on f3, and white goes for the move h3, asking the bishop what it's going to do. And now we see the main idea of Rapport's strategy. He gives up the bishop for the knight, so the queen does recapture. This may look strange because now white no longer has to deal with that annoying pin, but black is going to play on the dark squares in the center. So he puts the pawn on e6, so that this bishop on b3 is no longer doing anything bad against black's king, against the pawn on f7. Bishop g5 is played, so the knight is attacked twice by both the bishop and the queen. And the knight on b6 has done its job. It goes back to d7 to protect the knight one more time. You could also have played bishop e7 instead, with the same idea of protecting the knight. But after castling kingside, black plays here the move bishop d6. Now you see that black is trying to gain control over the dark squares. In particular, the e5 square is nicely controlled by all black's pieces. Rook ad1, placing the rook on the open file. And black goes h6, asking the bishop, what are you going to do? Well, the bishop goes back to e3. And here, interesting moment. Various possibilities here. I think most people would just play a natural move like castling kingside. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with black's position. You can say that white has the bishop pair, but once again, I'm not impressed by that bishop on b3, thanks to that pawns on f7 and e6. But Rapport plays an even more interesting move. True to his style, he's going for the uncompromising move g5. So what is this all about? Well, after rook fe1, he goes rook g8 with a plan of bringing up the g-pawn, trying to play for an attack against the white king. Bishop d4, critical moment, because the bishop is now attacking the knight again together with the queen. Knight is unprotected, and what should black do about it? Well, Rapport played here this move, rook g6. Very original way of playing. The rook is looking quite solid there, but there are some drawbacks to this move. And instead, if we go back one move, a much better idea here is to play the move g4, ignoring the knight, and you're setting up a stronger threat against the queen. If you do take, the pawn is knight takes g4, and black does have already quite a number of pieces in the attack. The knight from d7 may join soon as well. Black can castle queenside. You can double rooks on the g-file, launching an attack against the white king. I don't think this is a nice position for white. But it was not played. Rook g6 was played, and here, big moment, because white has the possibility now to try to take advantage of that king still being placed in the center. But what you need to do when the king is stuck in the center, it's open the files. And here, Cheparinov missed golden opportunity. He could have played this move, e5, with a double attack on the bishop and knight. But the pawn is attacked 3 times. It's only twice defended. But for instance, if you do take with the bishop, you take one more time, knight takes back, black is a pawn up, but there's queen g3. And this knight is attacked twice. The knight cannot go away, because then the queen on c7 will be hanging. If you do protect it one more time with the knight, it's rook takes d7. You're eliminating the defender. Once again, you cannot take with the knight because it hangs the queen. And if you do take back with the queen instead, it's queen takes e5. Now white has 2 minor pieces against the rook, which is really, really big news for white. So one other line, and of course it's a rapid game, yeah, so it's difficult to calculate all these lines. There's also knight takes e5 as a possibility, but then after a move like queen e2, all white's pieces are coming alive. And that's not fun when your king is in the center. If you do play knight fd7 to protect the knight one more time, the knight comes in to e4 with ideas to take on d6. It remains very complicated, but white's position just plays itself. Okay, this was not played in the game, but very important for your understanding, because queen e2 was played, setting up this threat of e5, but now black has the chance here to play bishop e5. The e-file remains closed, which means that the queen and rook on the e-file, they are still out of play. But look what Cheparinov now did. He played this move, knight d5. That's a kind of a move you could easily overlook, because that square has been covered so many times by black's pieces. The idea is that if black takes with the e-pawn the knight, you do recapture with the e-pawn when the file is open, and thanks to the pin, you're going to win back your piece with interest. So the critical move is c takes d5. E takes d5 is played, so white is a piece down, but he is attacking the bishop on e5, and you gotta do something about that bishop. Well, the most logical move here is bishop takes d4, trying to trade off as many attackers as possible. Now, if you do take back with the rook, you're still a piece down, and you give black the chance here to play the move e5, and you're no longer able as white to open up the central files. So therefore, Cheparinov didn't recapture on d4, but instead he played this move. Pawn takes e6, a beautiful intermediate move. So he removes the pawn from e6 so that the queen and rook are now very close to give checkmate when the e-file will get opened. So what should happen here? This is very difficult moment. You have to be careful. White has ideas to take on d7 or even take on f7. Should black give back the piece, or should he try to play for king safety? Well, king safety is definitely the most important aspect of this position. And what Rapport did is a serious mistake. He said, okay, I'm going to lose my bishop, so I give it up anyway, so that I get a pawn. But that pawn on f2 is absolutely irrelevant. What he should have done instead, well, let me first show you. If you do take the pawn on e6, it's queen takes e6 check. And if you go king f8, it's checkmate on f7. So that's just really bad. If you go with your king to the other side, then something like queen e7 check, king c8, rook takes d4. White is having 4 fantastic attacking pieces. He's a piece down, but he has 2 pawns. Bishop e6 can be played. It's a crushing mating attack. Rook c4, so many ideas to win material. What should black have done is play here the move knight c5, which is not an easy move. So you're giving up your bishop. But the point is that after pawn takes f7, it's double check. The king can hide on f8, and now the queen cannot come to e7 because now the queen on c7 covers that square. If you do play rook takes d4, you do have time to eliminate another very important attacking piece with knight takes b3, c takes b3, and okay, this is still complicated, but I think black has enough resources to consolidate its position. You can take the pawn on f7, you can play rook g7, trying to take the pawn with your rook instead, after which you can place your king on g7. Black is okay. Let's have a look. What happened in the game? Why is bishop takes f2 such a horrible mistake? Well, after queen takes f2, look at these pieces. They are so incredibly strong, and white is just one move away from giving a very strong check against the black king. Now, black played the move knight c5 anyway, with the same idea. As we have seen, black wants to get rid of that bishop. I should point out though that taking the pawn on e6 is not good because of rook takes e6. Now, if the king goes to f8, here we see that the f-file is open, the knight on f6 is pinned, and therefore rook takes d7, queen takes d7 is kind of forced. You are not allowed to take with a knight because of that pin. If you do take with the queen, it's queen c5 check. This is really strong, because if the king goes either to f7 or g8, let's say g8, there is rook e7 with a discovered check, you're winning the queen. Now, if you go with your king to g7 instead, that does allow the move rook to e7 with a double attack, and white has just a crushing attack as he regains the queen. It's a queen versus two rooks, but the rooks are not working together. This is just winning for white. So there followed knight c5 in the game instead of taking the pawn on e6. Now it's pawn takes f7 with double check. King f8, and looks as if the king is able to hide in front of that pawn. So the worst seems to be over, but Cheparinov plays very energetically now. With the move queen f5, he hits the rook on g6. Very important, the rook cannot go away because that hangs the knight on f6. So the rook got to stay there. So king g7 is played. And now it's puzzle time. Pause the video if you would like to solve a nice, beautiful combination, in fact. It's why to play and how to break through. Black is just about to eliminate the remaining attackers, get its remaining pieces into the game, and then he will emerge with an extra piece. But there is a beautiful tactical idea. It's why to play, and Cheparinov found the only winning move in this position. 3, 2, 1, rook e8. That's a beautiful move, which could easily have been overlooked. So what's the idea of this move? The rook joins the attack, and most importantly, white threatens now to promote its f-pawn. With check, getting a new queen, that's just a crushing mating attack. This rook on e8 can be captured in two different ways. But if you do take with a knight, then the knight is no longer on f6 and white has control over the queening square. There is the move f8 queen, and you cannot take the queen, you have to go king h7, and now the fastest way to win the game is queen g8 with checkmate because the rook on g6 is pinned. So that shows that knight takes e8 is just easily refuted. How about this move, rook takes e8? That's very important to have seen in advance, because now, for instance, if you do just take back on e8, you're getting a new queen. Black can just capture on e8, and there's not a check on f7 because the black queen is still working along the 7th rank. Everything is nicely covered. Black is a piece up. So what is in fact the idea? After rook takes e8, can you see the winning continuation, the move, which made Richard Rapport forced to resignation here? So why to move? Just eliminated the defender with a fantastic idea. Queen takes f6, guys. This is an amazing idea, with a point that, well, if you do take back with a king, you can just promote. And you have a new queen. The black king is wide open. This is a crushing mating attack. Critical, or even more critical, I should say, is the move rook takes f6. And now, well, you can promote again, but I think the key idea is that you would rather promote to a knight. Minor promotion with a huge family check. You are about to regain the queen. King has to move. You take on c7, And white is a piece up. Knight takes bishop, pawn recaptures, doesn't make any difference. White is a knight up. So this is an easy technical win. And that's why after the move queen takes f6, Ivan Cheparinov won the game in only 25 moves. Black resigned at this point. Fantastic game, I would, if you ask me. I mean, I hope you agree with me, you enjoy this game. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. And if there are any other games you would like to see covered. Make sure to subscribe once again. And definitely more coverage from the Rapid and Blitz World Championships, which are taking place right now. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.